In this video, we're going to talk about how you can have lots of wow moments by listening to your target audience. So we're going to be focusing on those customer interview calls, how you can learn so much about your target audience by getting on the phone with them and asking them powerful questions. Being able to ask the right questions is a superpower. I think this is a very understated skill where if you're able to ask questions that get people to think about the biggest pains that they're experiencing, you're going to be amazed at the quality of the answers that you receive. It is just such an incredible skill to develop, and the only way to develop it is through practice. The more questions you ask people, the more powerful those questions are going to become. And it truly feels like digging for gold. Because when you keep asking questions, it's almost as if you're digging a hole into the ground, looking for gold, and then eventually once you hit something where someone starts to have this kind of fear or sadness in their voice, and you can actually feel it, it's like you struck gold. That's a pain point. And you know if you ask a few more questions about that pain point, you're going to find out what this piece of gold is. What is it that they're really struggling with? And I know it sounds kind of weird because you're digging for this feeling that makes them uncomfortable. But once you truly understand what that pain point is, and you've asked a lot of questions where you understand it at a deep level, it allows you to create some amazing solutions so you can alleviate the pain of potentially thousands of people, no matter what your business is. So don't feel like this is going to hurt the person you're interviewing or you're kind of doing some disservice, because when you're asking them questions and you're feeling this pain in their voice, it's ultimately so you can serve them and serve other people that are experiencing the very same pain point. And even though we're only interviewing one specific person, when you find a pain point, odds are that a lot of people in your target market or target audience are experiencing that exact same pain point. It's like the classic saying that when someone raises their hand and asks a question, it means there was probably at least 10 other people that had the same exact question. So our goal here with these customer interview calls is to truly feel what the pain is that the people we're writing for are experiencing. And hopefully they're going to tell us like, yes, this is a pain point for me. But what's really important is we're also paying attention to the tone of their voice, to how it feels. The more you do this, the better you'll get at this skill. But there's certain times where you know, like you just hit something. You've hit something, it's a pain point, and now that you know that and you felt that they're struggling in that area or they're starting to trip over their words, you're like, okay, I got to speak to that. This is important. People in my target audience are really afraid of this thing. And just like I mentioned, you can really hear it in their voice when you strike a pain point. And if you haven't done these kinds of customer interview calls before, believe me, I know that this sounds so weird. And you may be like, what the heck is this guy talking about? But once you start actually doing these interviews, or even when you're talking with your friends, you'll start to pay attention to this once you become aware of it. And you'll be like, oh my God, I can hear it in their voice. They're struggling with this thing. And what this process allows is it gives you instant clarity about what to talk about in your copy. So if you did not do this customer interview, you may think that there are 5 important points in your head that this person in your target audience needs to hear, or you need to address these pain points. But then once you actually get on the phone with them and talk to them about these 5 things, maybe you realize that 2 of them are really painful for your reader to talk about. It's like that's a very clear pain point that they're experiencing. But then the other 3 points are not a problem at all for your reader. You thought there were these big pain points, but to them, they're not worried about that. It's only those 2 specific pain points that really are constantly going throughout their mind. So because you've done that interview, you can now write copy that talks about those 2 pain points specifically, and you can go into greater detail. So that's just one example about how doing these customer interview calls just gives you wow moments. It gives you so much clarity that you cannot get in any other way. So now here are some of my favorite questions to ask during these customer interview calls. The first one is, what's the hardest part about boom? So what's the hardest part about having a stressful day? Or what's the hardest part about finding a great yoga class? Whatever it is that feels relevant to your niche, you want to find out, why is that so hard? The next question is, what activities do you do on a daily basis that you don't enjoy? Now, obviously, some of these questions are going to make sense for your niche and some of them aren't. But what I like to do is I like to have a list of questions by my side when I'm interviewing someone from my target market. But then as the conversation naturally progresses, I'll tend to ask more questions based on what feels right in the moment. But if I ever feel like I have a blank and I don't know what to ask next, I'll refer back to a questions cheat sheet, which I'm going to give you at the end of this video. And don't worry if this feels like a little bit what's going on, because I'm going to give you an actual example of me being on the phone with someone, and you'll see what this customer interview call sounds like. So some other questions that I really enjoy are, why was that hard? Or what's the most frustrating task you have to do every day? Or how much time do you spend thinking about, and then you insert the problem that they're dealing with. So attached to this video is a PDF cheat sheet with all of my favorite questions, and I'll show you what it looks like. It looks like this. It's just a quick overview of what I'm talking about in this video and some questions that you can go back to if you're not sure what to ask. Or if you want to use these questions to start the conversation off, and then you can go with whatever questions feel right in the moment. And the most important thing is, once you ask these powerful questions, is to listen. Don't think about what you're going to say next or what question you're going to ask next. Because if you stay present in the moment and you're able to listen and be there with your person on the phone, with your reader, then you'll get so much more out of the interview. And when it's time to ask the next question, it'll just come to you on its own. The next question will just feel right and it'll just naturally come out of you. And like anything, this is a skill. So the more you do these custom interview calls, the more natural you'll become at it. And I think they're so much fun. So I know it's nervous. It can be very nerve-wracking to get on the phone with someone, but you are going to learn so much about your target audience by doing this. And I'm going to show you what one of these calls is actually like, so you can see that it maybe not is as bad as you're afraid it is, or as hard. It seems like a very natural thing once you actually start doing these customer interview calls, and once you listen to me giving one of those calls. So that's it. In this video, we talked about how you can get wow moments by going on these customer interview phone calls.